All right, so we'll go ahead and get started on our rainy, foggy afternoon. Welcome to everybody. My name is Maria Emanuel. I'm the Associate Director of UNH Innovation, and we're slowly coming to the end of our seminar series this year. Our topic has been Innovating in New Hampshire, Innovation Assistance, and today's topic, we're going to specifically talk about the state of innovation in New Hampshire with some great speakers. We want to thank you for coming to our seminars. This might be your first one, it might be your sixth one. Either way, we appreciate having you join us. We'll have another seminar next month on April 23rd, and our topic's going to be about funding and talking with a company that has gone through a funding experience, good, bad, or indifferent, but we just wanted to hear a story related to that. So more details to be posted. That'll be April 23rd. Afterwards, like we always do, we'll have appetizers, beverages, some networking. Please remember you have to be 21 or older for certain of those beverages. And before I introduce today's speakers, I want to say thank you to our sponsors for our seminar series. We have Finch & Maloney, which is a law firm that provides IP counseling and services located in Manchester, and Rebecca Swanwick is here from them today. And we have a new sponsor, Upton & Hatfield, a law firm with offices in Concord, Hillsborough, and Portsmouth, with legal services for people, businesses, and municipalities in New Hampshire, and we're glad to have them on board. And gold sponsors are Divine Millamant, located also in Manchester, a full-service legal firm. And we very much appreciate their support, both their literal support in terms of our appetizers and our beverages, as well as the emotional support they give us, too. They've been very helpful. So, in addition to April 23rd's seminar series, which will be here, talking about funding, I just wanted to let you know about a symposium that our office is putting together. It's going to be on April 29th, Wednesday, the following week, here in Durham at the UNH Memorial Union Building, I think it stands for. And it's going to be about creative works. So we talk a lot about our patentable intellectual property and our widgets, but we wanted to spend some time talking about what are creative works with a focus on copyrights and trademarks, to give you some background about Copyrights 101 and Trademarks 101, but also fair use, open source, commercializing creative works. So we have a full-day symposium. You'll start to see some advertising for that soon. If you have any questions or you're interested in it, just let me know afterwards and I can tell you some more information. So with that, I wanted to now introduce our speakers who are going to talk to us.
Can I interrupt you for a half second? Can we
Okay.
Can we please embarrass Dr. Short for a minute?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
So our favorite Kevin Short, Dr. Short of our mathematics department, has just come back from California, where he was inducted into, help me out, the National Academy of Inventors. He's a fellow with the National Academy of Inventors, so they just had an induction ceremony. He has some nice hardware, we understand, although he's not wearing his medal. It can join his Grammy. And we are just, as always, tremendously proud of the accomplishment that Kevin has had, and the fact that he's a lot of fun to work with, too. So. Okay, for now. I'm sure there's more to come. All right, so let me get on the right page here. It's really my pleasure today to introduce our two speakers. We have Liz Gray, who's the Director of Entrepreneurship for the New Hampshire Business Finance Authority and the state's Live Free and Start initiative. And Live Free and Start is a joint initiative between the Governor's Office, the Business Finance Authority, and the Department for Resource and Economic Development. Always forgetting where the "and" goes in that. And it's aimed at creating jobs and making it easier for technology companies to start, grow, and succeed in New Hampshire. And we also have Allison Grappone joining us, and she's the founder of the New Hampshire-born company called Nearby Registry, which connects independent businesses and nonprofits across the country to the $19 billion gift registry market and $40 billion online gift-giving market. And so we're fortunate because Allison is going to share her firsthand experiences about starting and growing a company here in New Hampshire, thinking about the resources that are available, the impact of the location, and what her experiences have been. So thank you both very much. Yeah. Yes. One day we keep thinking we might actually be able to have something that gets us outside and enjoying our alfresco opportunity, but fortunately it's not today. So So I'm going to kick this off and ask you, Liz, if you could just start us off to help understand what is the Live Free and Start initiative and some of the background and how and why.
Great, I would be happy to. So as Maria mentioned, the Live Free and Start initiative is a joint initiative of the Governor's Office, the Business Finance Authority, and the Department of Resources and Economic Development. It was launched last June, and the idea really came kind of I'll say it had two tracks. The first one being the governor had a series of meetings with some business leaders, and they were talking about, what can the state do to better support the tech sector here in New Hampshire? How can we make New Hampshire an even better place for tech startups to be able to start to grow and to succeed? And at the same time, conveniently, my boss, Jack Donovan, over at the BFA, was having some conversations with the Business Finance Authority's board of directors. And they said, what can we be doing here at the BFA to better support startups or earlier stage companies here in New Hampshire? So as the ideas started to kind of fall together, Jack came to me and asked me whether or not I wanted to join the initiative and kind of help kick it off and get it rolling. So it's been a whirlwind of a few months, but we've had a lot of great successes. I'd say in July we announced our Live Free and Start Advisory Council, which Allison is a member of and Mark Sadam is a member of, and then Mark Kaplan, who is the CEO of the Alpha, I'm sure many of you know, also is on the advisory council. But the council is made up of 14 folks. They're entrepreneurs and they're business leaders from across the state, and they all, came together and said, you know what, I have a passion. I want to volunteer my time and help advise the state on how, again, you all can do more to better support the tech sector here and startups. So it's been really exciting. In the past few months, we've done a lot of listening. The governor kicked off the initiative with a series of roundtables. We went to a number of business incubators around the state, and just to kind of hear from the business community and ask them specifically, what are your challenges? What are you seeing? What are your ideas on how we can do a better job to support all of you? The advisory council meets on a monthly basis as a whole, and then we've broken into some subcommittees to focus on some specific work, whether it's marketing, communications, legislative initiatives, and capital access subcommittee.
Are there specific goals that you have set for the initiative, either in this kind of beginning period or longer term?
So some of the initial projects that we took on, the first one I'll say is we wanted to develop a website and a social media presence. When you Google business incubator or entrepreneurship here in the state, you'll get a bunch of different random links, but there's nothing that brings, there's not even one site that links all of our business incubators. We've got 5 great incubators around the state, and you just can't find them. You'll have to go through a couple pages on Google before you're able to actually get to all of them. So we said, you know what, we'll take them on, we'll bring them together, and we want to use the website sort of as a launching pad to be able to connect folks with resources, whether it's resources through SBDC or the Division of Economic Development, through our business incubators, or sources of capital for them here in New Hampshire. You'll also see us on social media. We're, again, starting that through Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. Some of the other projects we took on, we kicked off with 3 pieces of legislation. It seemed a little aggressive, but we've made it. We're halfway through now. The first one is Senate Bill 215, which is relative to a rebate on the R&D tax credit. So we were trying to think creatively on how we could get some capital back into the hands of some of our earlier stage tech companies. And so any company that's currently eligible for the R&D program can, if this bill passes, will have the option to take the full tax credit or take a partial rebate of the tax credit. And Mark, we were really thankful, came and testified and brought up a really great point that, you know what, if some of these earlier stage companies, they need the capital, they need it now. They don't need a tax credit that they won't be able to apply to their profits for a few years out. So let's give them the money. Let's let them reinvest it. And here's an added bonus. If they do end up taking the rebate, they could even match it to some of the IRC funds that UNH puts out. So it's a really exciting opportunity for them to, again, take some state funding and to be able to put it towards some research dollars. Another bill, we've got Senate Bill 223, also is moving on, and it's the business name availability bill, we call it. And that will help to remove some of the subjectivity when you're going into the Secretary of State's office with a new business name. So we're hopeful that's going to be moving on pretty well through the House. And then today I'm happy to report our largest bill, which was a complete overhaul of our securities regulations here in the state. Senate Bill 223 just passed the Senate with a 23-0 vote today. So,
Congratulations.
It was a 180-page bill. It was a big one. So we're very, very excited about that. So
that's fantastic.
Those are some of the big things that we've been working on.
Yeah. So I think many of us would say there's a lot of great things about New Hampshire. We like to live here and raise our families and to work here. But what do you think is great about New Hampshire for startups, for helping a company start and for helping them to grow?
Yeah. A lot of us think that New Hampshire's great for a lot of different reasons. We've got different connections, whether it's, we grew up here and we just love the quality of life here, or we moved here because we had some really favorable experiences vacationing here, and we felt that bond and that connection with the state. But New Hampshire also likes to pride itself on being a very accessible state, accessible to our state and our local and our federal elected officials, accessible to resources through the Division of Economic Development or SBDC, or incubators. We often say, you're only 1 or 2 phone calls away from getting the answer that you might need to help your business be able to move forward. Quality of life, obviously, everybody loves our lakes and mountains, our beaches, and all of those great aspects. But if you think about it, we've also have been recently ranked the most livable state, one of the safest states, one of the best places to raise a family. We're one of the most highly educated states. And I don't know if you caught it today, but in the Globe there was a great article on Portsmouth and how Portsmouth dining is now very well known. So
We're the new Portland.
that's right. I couldn't remember exactly how they put it. But broadband, there was another report out today that said that New Hampshire has some of the highest or the fastest internet speeds in the country. So you don't have to be in Boston, you don't have to be in New York, you don't have to go to Silicon Valley to be able to have a successful startup here.
Nice. So when you talked about the start of Live Free and Start, the start of the start, you talked about the various government agencies here in the state that had an interest, and you've been out and speaking with the business community, but what are your hopes for New Hampshire citizens to get involved with the initiative, and what roles there for like those of us here today?
Sure. Well, I would love all of you to be able to connect with Live Free and Start in some way, shape, or form. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are starting business, let us know. Let us know how we can help you. Connect through me, and I can connect you to other resources throughout the state. If you are interested and you have the ability to be a guest blogger, if you've got something that that you can help support some of the entrepreneurs here in the state, let me know. We'd love to be able to use you as a resource. As I mentioned, we've got livefreeandstart.com is our website. You can go there right now. It's just a landing page. In a couple more weeks, we'll have the full site up and running, but you can sign up for our email newsletters and also for I won't give that away right now. Yes, exactly. Some things will be announcing in a couple more weeks. But please do connect with us through the website or again on social media. Twitter, we're Live Free Start. And then, of course, Live Free and Start through Facebook and LinkedIn.
So going from kind of that level about what we're looking at the state, can you tell us about Nearby and how you started it and how you grew it and some of the experiences you've had?
Yeah, be happy to. So I started my business, before my business I had been in both the for-profit and nonprofit sectors, and I had thought of this idea when I was in grad school that my husband and I got engaged, and we didn't want to have a gift registry. We don't like stuff. We didn't really want to support big box stores. Nothing against them, but it doesn't support our economies as much as local businesses do. And I really care about supporting local economies and providing help to our neighbors by shopping locally. So I just thought of the idea of something called Nearby Registry. It was just a concept. But I actually used that concept for our wedding. So we created a Google Doc instead of using a gift registry like Macy's or Bed Bath & Beyond. We created a Google Doc of all of our favorite local shops and services. So local gift certificates to a theater, boat building supplies, things like that. And people loved it, and I thought, well, why doesn't this exist? It's an enormous market. There's a whole market called the LOHAS market, Lifestyles of Health and Sustainability. How has this not been done? And then I was stupid enough to start it. So that's where the journey begins. I was in a full-time job, and somebody said, one of my best friends said, there's this thing called the New Hampshire Startup Challenge, and you should apply to it. You just have to submit a quick, I don't even know at that point, it wasn't even a full pitch deck, it was just like a summary of what your business would be. I submitted it, I made it to the next round, I made it to the next round, and then I won. And it was is this recorded? One of those, oh, wow moments where you realize, I mean, there was a lot with that win. It was $25 cash. Did I say 25 or 25,000? I got a K in my head, $25,000 cash prize. You also had legal and accounting services tied to that, free space with Alpha Loft, which used to be called the ABI. It was an amazing package, and it truly was, I'm not exaggerating, the reason that I started. I wouldn't have been able to do it without that. I mean, $25,000, that's a lot of money. The catch to it, and I think it's a good catch, you have to spend $25,000 before you get a check for $25,000. So I had a full-time job at the time. I won the startup challenge, and I kept working on my business plan, started to think about what would my website look like. I did some wireframing, understood what the 25K would need to be used for, and then I did a friends and family round. So that's usually the first type of funding that you get for your own business. It's you put your own savings into it, and you get the 3 F's, friends, families, and fools, to give you more money, invest in your company, get equity stake. I chose to do it equity. So I spent $25K for the first part of my website, and then got the check for $25K. So that felt good. I felt like, okay, I'm in the right spot. And with the friends and family round, it gave me enough so I could really kind of drive it full force. I left my full-time job in beginning of 2012 and started on Nearby full-time. And so from there on, it was just me as CEO. I didn't have a partner. I tried to find a tech partner at the time, but because I knew so little about what I needed and tech in general, I went a very different route. I learned a lot about what works and doesn't work, about not having partners, but we did really well. I was able to hire a few people. We expanded from New Hampshire. New Hampshire was a wonderful place to start. It was a really friendly environment to understand what worked and didn't work about our business. Our customers were friendly. So our customers are storefronts, gift registrants, and shoppers. And they were all great because it was just a friendly environment. They respected that it was a new business trying to break into something to help local communities. And when we messed up, which we did all the time with our website, they were okay with it. And we went back to them saying it was fixed. Now it's ready for that next phase. And so we grew in New Hampshire we launched with about 50 stores. We went up to about 150 in New Hampshire. And then we went out to a bigger market, Seattle. We knew that would be our first kind of big market that we tried to attract. And that went really well. So we've now expanded, and most of our sales, actually about 3/4 of our sales, are out in Seattle. So, I mean, there's a lot along the way. I was CEO and had every hat on. When you're CEO, you're figuring out how to start a business, how to name it, why you name it something, how to build a website, who you get to build the website, who do you bring on for employees, how do you expand, how do you raise funds, and that's a constant job of trying to find the funding to keep it going. So it's hard and we talked about this a little bit here. I don't know if you have specific questions about funding, but that's next on the list, so I thought I'd just dive in.
Some of the challenges that you had, because you started in an interesting way with this competition first, and then that inspired you to do your 3 F's round, but you've done other things along the way too.
I have. One thing that I'd say, and I don't know if where this comes in the discussion, but something that's really changed even just the 4 years I've been doing this is that the environment in New Hampshire is so much better for startups in a lot of ways. There are more startups. There's more, like innovation labs, if you will, of people who we're all in different stages of startups, but because of that, we all help each other. And that was the number one thing that helped me along the way. I knew nothing about running this type of business or building a website, getting our customers, and having 30 people just walking around the Alpha Loft. I could ask them any question at any stage of my business, and I could usually get an answer within 20 minutes instead of spending 2 weeks doing Google searches and reading books. And so that's a really nice thing over the last 4 years. So many more startups. A lot of people are just open and very excited to be mentors and supports. Other groups like the New Hampshire High Tech Council and the Entrepreneurship Foundation of New Hampshire are growing as well. So just a lot of wonderful networks to better understand how to operate in the startup world.
Were you able to find the technical resources you needed?
That was tricky for me because I made a lot of mistakes early on. For the first 2 years, our site is high functioning, it works very well, but it's built on an old platform. And because I didn't know about technology very well and I had tech advisors, but not a tech partner, we made bad decisions early on that are sticking with us. My tech solution, I had tech advisors in New Hampshire, but the company I used was in Portland, Oregon. And then I switched over after 2 years to a consultant in this region. And that was a really great switch that I made. The resources are certainly here. You just have to know enough about what you need to find it. I ended up working with people in Portland, Oregon because I put out an RFP and nobody in the region responded the way I wanted them to. But knowing what I know now, my RFP would have looked different. I probably would have found a local company or even a tech partner now that I know what I know.
Yeah. Were there other significant challenges that when you look back on the past couple of years?
Oh, I mean, everything feels like a significant challenge. It's like so many steep learning curves. But again, almost every single steep learning curve was cut in half by just a conversation with the next person over at the Alpha Loft or going to a networking event. But I mean, funding, that's always a challenge. I was able to really bootstrap the startup for the first 2 years. So my friends and family round, which wasn't huge at all, kept me going. I didn't pay myself, so that was part of it. And I didn't have employees for the first year and a half. But funding's tough. I mean, if you don't have a proven model that's high functioning already, it's really hard to get funding. And if you don't have the right team, that's the number one thing that I ran into with funders is I ended up, New Hampshire wasn't a good environment for me for angel groups, so I ended up going out west, and I had really great conversation, was always invited in to pitch, but because I didn't have a solid team, that was always the thing that didn't help me move forward.
So a management team?
Yeah, so not having a tech partner and sales and marketing were the big things. I had advisors in all of those roles, but because I didn't have anybody doing the day-to-day, and that makes sense to me. I mean, it would be hard for me to invest in a company if it was just one person who was managing all of it, but that's how it went.
So we'll come back with some more questions, but let me switch back to you, Liz, and we wanted to talk about, when I looked over the Live Free and Start website, it really identified the high-tech community of New Hampshire and needs there. And so what was the goal with identifying that community, and what were you trying to accomplish? Is it a narrowly defined group? Is it broadly defined? How do you use that?
Allison's laughing because we had a lot of conversations over how exactly we should be defining our audience. But we definitely have a tech focus. It is probably a little bit broader than some folks would like, but we wanted to be a little bit more inclusive at the start. I think a lot of the things that we'll be working on, though, will have a much broader appeal to, or a broader, will support companies in a much broader manner. So some of the bills that I had mentioned earlier will be applicable to any company that's starting here in New Hampshire versus specifically in the tech industry. But the focus on the tech industry, the reason we looked at that is because we know that the tech sector here in New Hampshire and across the country, we know that they consistently pay significantly higher wages, they pay benefits, and they're very strong partners here within the state. And we want to support that industry and make sure that it's one that that is successful and able to grow and hopefully expand here. And look at companies outside of New Hampshire and have them move here. So we want to make sure that we are as business friendly as we can be, and doing whatever we can again to break down barriers or eliminate any of the challenges to starting or growing a tech company here.
So hearing about Live Free and Start at a programmatic level, after hearing Allison's story, how would you two connect? If you were starting your company today, what resources or services are you hopeful that you'll be providing, and then what do you think you would hope to look for from a group like that?
Well, what I'm hoping for is that, once we have the website launched, it will be, a site that folks can go to be able to kind of launch into, finding information and additional resources. Whether it's if you're looking for access to capital, we'll have a completely separate page on capital sources here in New Hampshire or New Hampshire-based sources. We will have information to other links like our small business development. I keep pointing to Jason, who is in the back from SPDC, another great partner. Connecting to UNH Innovation and the Alpha Loft and the other incubators throughout the state, and making sure that people know. We'll help them by consolidating the information. I remember one of the first conversations I had with Allison was, she was saying how it took her days and weeks to find some of the resources because she wasn't familiar with it, or she hadn't done it before. So to try to help cut down on some of that time that folks will take, we want to be able to pull all of that together, aggregate all the information, the links, and to just make it easier. We're also going to, on the site, you'll be able to connect directly with me and just give me a call and I can help, again, connect. We want to highlight the ease of connecting with our resources. So that will be a really big piece that you'll see throughout the website. And again, highlighting the connections and making sure that we're linking people to the resources, whether it's capital or otherwise.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into one more thing, and then I want to ask about how you would enjoy it. But what, toward funding, are there any specific goals related to helping growing companies find funding, be successful in their attempts for funding?
So again, on the website, as we've been talking through the advisory council, we realized that access to capital is probably the most asked question for any startup. So we wanted to make sure that that page was fairly meaty. And we didn't, so you won't just see a list of, resources that you can connect with, angel. Yes, we will be listing off, angels and VCs and other sources of capital here, startup challenges and things like that. But we also, on that page, you'll see some great seminars and webinars and some information to help entrepreneurs better prepare themselves to reach out, to make that first call to a potential investor, so that they know that they've done their homework and they've really prepared themselves to be able to ask some of those questions, or to say, you know what, I think I am worthy of funding, so think about me. The Capital Access Subcommittee that I mentioned earlier is also looking at how, again, the state can provide a stronger role or a more active role in funding earlier stage companies. So we're meeting with some regional state partners in the next couple of weeks to look at how we might be able to leverage some of the existing sources of funding and get them to earlier stage companies. Another piece on the capital access side, which isn't 100% for entrepreneurs, but Governor Hassan for the first time has put into her proposed budget, $250,000 to support education and acceleration programs through our business incubator network. It's moving through the budget process now. The House remove some of the funding, but we're hoping that once the budget gets over to the Senate, they'll restore and we'll be able to provide some really needed capital to our incubators that are supporting all of the entrepreneurs here through their workshops and seminars. And the Alpha Loft, as you probably all know, recently launched their Accelerate NH program, and at the end of that program, the participants will actually get a small award. So that funding could also go to expand that award and help those companies grow.
Yeah. So hearing where they're headed and what they're hopeful to do, how do you think that could have and could still impact you?
In a lot of ways, I think, like Liz said, just having everything aggregated in one place is really nice. But what's great about it is it links to the original sources a lot of times. So you don't feel like you're on one site and you have one voice. It's you're being linked to the professionals that actually know the topics and can help you take you to that next step. What I also really like about the site is it targets various stages of companies. So it's not just people like me who know nothing about moving forward with a company. It's also, if people they have a successful business in Massachusetts and they've heard about New Hampshire, there's a little buzz going on, they find themselves on this site, they can easily find a place on the site to figure out more about moving here and actually contact somebody about, what does this deal look like to move to the state of New Hampshire. So I love that it's not just for early stage startups. I think I am naturally a networker, so I knew that I couldn't do my business without learning from everybody around me and everybody in the tech and startup environment in New Hampshire. So I naturally went to every event I could find for the first 2 or 3 years. I've slowly stopped going to every event because I was going crazy. But I think it makes it easier. They're going to have a calendar there, show all the locations. The incubators, again, there are more incubators. The incubators are more developed. They have more programs now. That will all be in that one location. So, yeah, I think just a lot of resources.
Well, it's such a common theme that it has just been coming out since we've started this discussion. It's about the networking and being able to find clear and concise resources to help with questions, or maybe even to ask questions that you don't know to ask at this point, and that you're both have tackled that at different levels.
Yeah, and I think another great thing about the site is for the early stage people, I also forgot I had a microphone on, so I hope I haven't been screaming. I tend to really
I think we'll just say everybody can hear us, right?
Is it too loud? Okay. Yeah. What I really like about the site too is that it, no, I'm distracted. Wait, give me a second, I'll get it. Forget it. No, it's gone.
That's okay. We can come back to it.
I'll get it back.
It's a good site, though. We really appreciated Allison's input. It's been really a pleasure having Allison and Mark and all the others on the advisory council, because their perspectives are really driving the initiative and driving where we're going with and making those recommendations directly to the governor and, again, through the legislative initiative. So having their input and Allison saying, I needed this. Why wasn't this here before? And okay, so we can't just put a list of resources or capital here in New Hampshire. We need to make sure that if I was doing this early on, I might have jumped really quickly. Not you necessarily, but a startup might have jumped really quickly and said, "Oh, I'm going to call that person. I'm going to send them an email because I am the right person for them to invest in." But we're walking them through and helping them understand, okay, take a step back. Have you really done all the things that you need to do? So
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yes.
The site helps you gauge your yes, thank you. I wish you had read it a little sooner. It helps you gauge readiness. So if you're super early on in creating a business, of course you think, I need money. So you go to the capital access area and you think, I'm going to call these angels, because by description, and I actually just talked to Jim about this earlier, by the description on an angel group site, you think, they want me. They want to invest in my company. No, they don't. I mean, you need so much before you can go to them, and this site helps gauge where you're at. Are you ready to contact these people? Probably not. If not, it doesn't mean you have to end there. These are the people you can contact to get to that next stage. So it really is a roadmap to walk you through wherever you're at.
And I'm hopeful we'll have a big announcement when the website goes.
yes, give us a
live.
couple more weeks.
Nice.
But yes,
So this is the preview.
Yes.
Right, this is the preview. So from what you've lived and what you hear, what are some of the lessons learned or things you want people to think about if they're interested, if they have an entrepreneurial spirit, if they're thinking about starting a company, if they have started a company or looking to grow it? Kind of the punchlines that you think are important themes for them to be thinking about.
I think for me, the number one thing is this is such a friendly place. People want to help. So if you have an idea and you don't know if it's a good idea or you're scared to talk about it, just go talk about it, because no matter what, you'll get instant feedback. You have to be ready for feedback. You have to appreciate it and actually use it to better your business and decide if you are going to or not going to go forward with your business. But the network is there. I mean, if you have a question, you ask one person and you will be put in touch with the right person. After you can ask one person and I know you'll get your answer, or directly connected, a personal introduction to that person you need to talk to. I never felt like I was left stranded whenever I had an issue.
Yeah.
So that's my number one thing. And you can start on the site with
Yep.
that.
You can start there, and just remember, you can do it. You don't have to be somewhere else. You can do it here in New Hampshire and use the resources that are available. Folks often say, oh, well, maybe we need some more business incubators around the state just to have them pop up and have it be more convenient. Well, if you look at it, if you look at the map, we've got some really great representation. The Alpha Loft alone has locations in Durham and Portsmouth and Manchester. We've got the Enterprise Center at Plymouth and Plymouth. We've got the Mount Washington Tech Village in Conway, Dartmouth Regional Tech Center up in Lebanon, and the New Dunn Innovation Center right in downtown Hanover, and then the Hannah Grimes Center out in Keene. There are so many great resources, and I'm excited that when we do have the website up and running, when we've got the events calendar, you will just see, every week there will be a ton of seminars that any member of any of our incubators will have access to. Members of the public can come in, join, and to have that networking opportunity to be able to ask that question: Is this a good idea? How do I get it to where else should I be connected? Who else should I be talking to? Where else can I learn more about X, Y, or Z topic? There's going to be there's so much out there. It's just a matter of making sure we're aggregating our information and our resources and getting it out to the right audience.
So speaking of resources, I think we have two great resources right here. Are there questions that you'd like to jump in with?
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious about what big business liquidity looks like in New Hampshire. Are people selling, or will your website connect people to other selling businesses, or are people closing their businesses when they are done with it and not extracting that value?
For me, Hollis could answer that
Yeah.
question, but
Jason, do you wanna
I
take that?
only know from the startups that I've, hung out with for the last 4 years is that, a lot of them have closed, but some have spent very little money getting to that point. They were just testing it, and okay, they closed. Others spent a lot of money and closed. I know of two. Now, one is currently in the process of selling, and another just sold a few months ago not to companies in New Hampshire, to actually both are on the West Coast that they've sold to. But I mean, it happens. The support systems are here to make that happen. I think the network is strong enough that if it's a good business, it can sell.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think because of our location, we'd be any less likely to sell a company than if we were in, New York or Boston.
Yeah.
Allison, I'm into networking, and I met you actually at Boston Globe. I think it was for Boston New Technology. And I think one of the strengths of New Hampshire is how close we are to Boston and all the resources of Boston. I mean, Dine is just taking people and moving from there to Manchester. And I was just wondering how important your networking down there was, do you think?
I think it was good for me. It wasn't necessarily important for my business, but I think that was because I didn't know enough. I think if I was at a later stage, if I went to Boston now, I'd approach it differently and I'd probably get more out of it, i.e. funding, or something like that. But no, I mean, and you know what was great about it is going and presenting in Boston and meeting other people. You kind of feel, I felt in New Hampshire, like, well, I can hack it in New Hampshire, but can I hack it in Boston? And you can. It's the same thing. You're just crossing state lines. You're presenting to a bigger audience, but it's the same thing. So it was really beneficial for me in that way. And I know a lot of people, some of the other startups, that's where they have gotten a lot of their funding.
Some of them just don't want to cross the state lines.
Right.
Like many Cape Codders come over the
Can I pick up that, Fred? I mean, why won't they cross the state line? I mean, it seems like a natural spillover point. Portsmouth's a cultural, the Seacoast in general is a cultural center.
Anywhere
It's got a
else
lot
in
of
the country,
benefits to
it's-
Boston without the detriments of Boston. Why aren't they doing it? Property's cheaper. What's holding them back?
I think a lot of people just don't realize the resources and what they could have access to here in New Hampshire. So we do need to do a better job. Our Division of Economic Development does the best they can with the budget that they've got to be able to market the entire state and the business climate here in New Hampshire. I think we are going to help do that as well, but trying to educate folks and making them aware, telling them and highlighting our success stories. So another thing that we'll be doing each week, we're going to be having an Innovator of the Week series to be able to talk about some of the success stories to inspire folks and to tell them, you know what, you can do this. And then we'll also be highlighting, some of our major success stories like our Dines, so that people know, look at that, Dine was successful. Look at them now, and they're in Manchester.
And I think there are success stories.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's many more than
I can't remember who it is in our group.
the council.
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin. Who, what's his company's name?
Secured Network Services.
Yeah, I mean,
SNS.
he came up here
Yeah.
because of New Hampshire and what we offered, and
Right.
he could afford it, and it was good for his business, and he is extremely successful. He's a great success story. There's actually somebody in this room who I won't name in case they don't want to be named, but they moved here because they love New Hampshire. They can speak up if they want to, but I moved back here because I love New Hampshire. I could have easily, and it might have been better if I had started this in Seattle, but I felt strongly about being here. So.
Yeah. No, Kevin Lowe from SNS had operations in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and he had the connection from vacationing here in New Hampshire. I think that was it, or maybe he had family here, and said, you know what, I'm going to call the Division of Economic Development, and I want them to tell me why I should come back to New Hampshire. A couple months later, he moved up. He has operations in Littleton. He, I think, is going to be making it public soon that Manchester, he'll have some additional offices, and he's hired, I want to say 20 or 30 new folks in just a very short period of time. He's doing extremely well, and it's a great, again,
and he's
another
doing
success.
a lot for New Hampshire. I mean, he just put up new cell towers.
At Cannon.
At Cannon, and I mean, he's making it possible for other business people to stay here and come here.
I'm going to this is sort of two-part. The first one, as somebody who went through the startup process and hired employees, do you feel that labor practices are fair for you as a business owner, also for your employees?
I feel like I don't know enough to answer that. I mean, it was fine for me.
Okay.
It worked. Nothing was super confusing about it, but I don't think I have enough experience to say, compare it to anywhere else. If that's fair.
Yeah, no, I think so.
And then the part I had for you that kind of stems from that is how much of that, or I guess, are there tiers to you start with one person, then you're 5, then you're 50, then you're 100. Are there tiered treatment of employers of that size in the state?
By specifically, our economic development folks, our Department of Labor.
Both, actually. I'm more interested in your Department of Labor, though.
Yeah, I think the Department of Labor has come a really long way. They have been criticized in the past for being too heavy on regulating and being too quick potentially to fine. I think the commissioners over the last couple of years have been very good at working with companies. They have done a huge amount in terms of getting out there. They do labor law seminars every year, and they have. You can sign up for the seminars online, and I want to say they have 2,000 or so businesses that come in and they meet, and it's a 2 or so hour session. But at that, they talk through. These are some of the recent changes that were passed through the legislature last year. These are some of the top 10 violations that we've seen throughout companies here in New Hampshire. Make sure you're not going to do that. And here's our contact information. Call us if you have questions. We want to be a resource to you. They don't want to only be seen as the scary regulator that's going to come in and trip them up on something. They're trying to do much more to do outreach and be supportive of the business community. So I think they've done a really outstanding job on that front.
Awesome.
That helps.
Did I see you had a question?
Yeah, it's for Allison. You mentioned that you had advisors in the sales, marketing, and technical space, and I was just wondering how you found those advisors.
I had, for almost all of my advisors, I had either worked with them previously or gone to grad school with them. I did have and something else I should say about my advisors, now that I look back on it, my initial advisors, I wouldn't have been able to start and continue my business without them for moral support. It was less about their knowledge and more, they definitely helped me on some early things, but they helped me get through the tough times where I was like, can I even do this? and they all said I could, so I believed them and I did it. Then I had a next round of advisors who were actually topic specific, but at the level that I needed them at. I'd kind of outgrown the topic specific people that I had early on. And then those I ended up meeting through the network. But it took, a couple years to find them. One thing I've advised people definitely when you're looking for advisors, don't just find somebody and say, will you be my advisor? That's probably, anybody's willing to answer your questions, they'll help you do anything. But if you ask them to be an advisor before you really have any rapport with them, it doesn't really feel right. And you'll feel that too. So I just kind of kept networking, and if I knew somebody well but they weren't the right fit, I might say to them, hey, I really, really need help with sales in these specific areas. Do you know anybody that could answer those questions for me? You might end up talking to 5 people, and 2 of those people might say, call me anytime with questions, and after a few times, they're just naturally an advisor.
Does an advisor get equity?
In my company, so my initial, I don't mind saying this, my initial advisors got equity in the company. I felt really strongly that the business happened partly because of them, so they got it. As things went on, I started to better understand that a lot of advisors are just happy to be advisors. So if anybody had requested to get equity, sure, why not? They're making a big difference, but there would have been, at that point, I probably would have had more details and structure around what that advisor is. So how many times do we have to meet per quarter, and what do you have to provide me, and do you have to attend meetings? Whereas the initial advisors were, doesn't this sound great? Will you help me do this business with no guidelines? You just have to learn it, yeah.
Chris?
I had a question. I'm kind of coming at it from a very different standpoint. I have a great many technological devices and trying to figure out how to get together with appropriate management and marketing to make something with it. How do you get resources and ability for that type of position?
For you, let's see, how am I going to say this? I am not the expert that will be able to answer all of your questions, but like we've been saying, we will be able to help connect you with folks. So if you said, these are the issues that I need help with, can you help me, navigate? These are some of the people that I've already talked to. Where else can I go? Who else should I talk to? And from there, just having that initial dialogue with me or with someone else will hopefully be able to kind of point you in the right direction to get you well on your way.
Are you building like a kind of database of these resource experts that would be available for conversations?
Yep, that is another thing. We're relying heavily on the members of the Live Free and Start Advisory Council. We will have a handful of them listed as Ask the Expert, and you'll be able to connect with them directly to be able to ask some of those questions, or again, come through me and I can help facilitate.
Actually, my focus was slightly different in trying to find other people who are interested in entrepreneurship, who have the management and the marketing expertise and are looking for products.
Yep.
And trying to get the group together to wind up with something that is a successful operation.
I thought you were going to say something. Maybe we can chat afterwards. And
that's always the catch-22, though, isn't it? You need a team, but you don't have a team. But how do you get a team?
Right, exactly.
I mean, that exact thing is what I was going to ask. You said you needed that team, and you were getting it from people in like an outlaw environment, just walking around and talking to people that you used as your kind of co-team. It does seem like there would be other people that would be interested in learning part of that process in becoming kind of a cohesive team like you're suggesting. And a matchmaking service might be something that would be very useful at the level that.
And that's where I find that networking helped a lot, because as far as matchmaking services go, it's more that you end up, if you go to 2 tech events, or maybe 3 or 4, you'll start to meet people, and if you just tell them what you need, within a couple months, they'll be pointing you to so many people that you'll start to be able to narrow out and see, who's available for a position like this. That can be hard. But I don't know about I think it would be challenging to have a matchmaking service
Right.
like online because it constantly has to be updated. I feel like in this world, it's just everybody knows if you explain what your business is and what you need, they can figure out the right fit in their head. And I think it's harder to establish that online.
It's probably easier for your personality type, where you've already said you're a connector and can outgoing, than somebody who's more introverted that isn't like that.
Yeah, I'd maybe find somebody to do it for you then. I just think it's hard to, and I am very understanding of people who do not like the networking part of it. That's a skill that if you don't have, you need to find a partner who has it. I honestly think it's one of them. You have to have it to be successful in New Hampshire, I think.
Mark, were you going to say something?
Yeah, there is a website that started in Boston called Cofounders Lab that will do some of the matchmaking. I mean, it's one of those Gigo things, you get out of it what you put into it.
Right.
So you can't build a team with an algorithm, but you can get people through Cofounders Lab they'll say, I just want to do management, or I just want to do finance, or I have an idea. But then you have to go off and meet them. And
yeah, what I found hard about that, because I tried to do that a little bit with another site, is just location-wise.
Yeah, and that's in Boston. It was started in Boston, so it's very Boston heavy.
Yeah.
And they have quarterly meetings in the Boston area, Co-Founders Lab. And I think you wear a red dot if you're hiring and a yellow dot if you're looking. Right.
Yeah.
Kevin?
What about, from the tech perspective, trying to work with the business school and getting students maybe interested in a product that techie has developed and look at a potential business plan, just as a way to get your head around where it would go, like in the Holloway competition or something?
Yeah, and so the business school has a few opportunities. Kevin's mentioning the Holloway. I call it the wrong name. It was once upon a time called the Business Plan Competition, and now it's called
Innovation to Market Competition,
which kind of accomplishes similar purposes. And so that's a way to have ideas explored. There are some classes here that Mark's working with some classes that take technologies and look to see, is there a market, what could it look like, using joint engineering and business students. Some of the MBA students need projects where they will work with a company, and they're addressing very specific questions for a company. Could we expand in this area? What could this opportunity look like? And you have to remember the balance. It's done on the student's schedule for their class, and it's based on those class deliverables. And you really have to structure the questions well. But those are other opportunities to engage with both business as well as we're looking for more ways to have business and engineering students form these cohesive groups to bring both pools of expertise to the questions. Other questions or comments?
One last one. Is there anything on your site that addresses like fees and startup costs? What people can expect in that front?
Well, there's nothing yet too much on the existing site. Fees for what in particular?
If there's any what taxes look like in your first year, what you can expect in lawyers' fees, what you can expect in IP costs.
You know what, that is not something that we had talked about, but I will say we did think about developing sort of a much more detailed roadmap and basically saying, okay, if you're going to be hiring employees, you need to make sure that you have unemployment insurance, you need to make sure that you are, paying your taxes, you need to do this, you need to do that. But then we realized that if we started down that road, we were going to be delving into jumping into so many different rabbit holes that we decided to keep it at a much higher level, and that we will be able to connect you with folks that can answer those questions. So if you did come to me and say, okay, I need a better understanding on the state level, what agencies do I need to connect with? That we can help you with, but we're not going to be doing that on the website.
Which I think that's a great way to do it because, so one person that she might connect you with is somebody named Allison Grappone who works for Small Business Development Center. And she has been one of my best advisors for 4 years. She's just been championing me through this whole thing. But she's great because the fees will differ depending on what you need. And you asked a question about legal fees and accounting fees. It could be $200 or $20,000 depending on how you structure a deal or don't structure a deal. So I think it's really great that the solution is to kind of, especially in the early stages, just connect you with somebody who can find out where you're at in the stage of your business.
Okay.
Other questions? Well, what we can do is move on to more snacks and beverages and continue this conversation. But before we do that, I really want to say thank you very much to Liz and Allison for sharing your experiences, your observations. So stick around, come back in a month. We're going to keep talking some more topics, and thank you all for coming tonight.